Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl, the recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. This is our coffee and conversation meeting for the day. The article I have here is Changing People, Places, and Things in Recovery. It says, when you get into recovery, you only have to change one thing, everything. People, places, and things. If you've been to any recovery programs, you've heard the saying, change your people, places, and things when you get clean. This saying can seem generic and obvious to many, which is meant to be. The hard part is actually following through daily with changing our lives. It says, what does it mean to change people, places, and things? It says, when a person starts their journey in recovery, they need to take an inventory of their lives. This means analyzing their living arrangements, environment, friends, family, hobbies, work, career, etc. Anything that is going to lead us back to our old ways must be cut out of our lives. This can be a major thing such as negative family members or minor things such as planning a new routine to work to avoid bad neighborhoods. We need to build an entirely new life around recovery and get rid of our old life that was built around addiction. When it comes to changing people, places, and things in our lives, we have to be firm and set boundaries. Old habits and old friends will find ways to creep back into our lives if we allow it. And that can be tough, man. Changing people, places, and things, something that I had to do. You know, it was if or maybe, or let me think about it. You know, for me, I had to change people, places, and things. And my life that talked about was built around addiction. You know, who I was associated with, you know, people that, you know, I was hanging around with, was, you know, using buddies and the places that I went to get my drugs and alcohol, and the things that I was doing to get my drugs, you know. So I had to cut that out of my life. And this last time, I touched on all three aspects, the people, places, and things, because I really wanted to recover. I really wanted to stay clean and stop using drugs and alcohol. You know, as before, my intentions were good, you know, and I wanted to be clean, but I just didn't know how to, right? And this last time, I really, you know, put the effort in. I really applied action into my life and into my recovery, and it can be tough for a lot of us, man, because you know, we talked about like family members and stuff like that, and for me, you know, I had to. It can be uncomfortable. It might not seem right, but like if I wanted to stay clean up from drugs and alcohol, and I wanted to be the best me, you know, I have to follow through and set boundaries and remove these people, places, and things, right? And I want to build a new life around recovery, you know, because I don't want the old behaviors to creep back in, and I don't want to become that person again, you know. So I had to cut a lot of major things out of my life because my life consists of, um, you know, associated with drugs and alcohol, and the people, places, and things that I was doing and surrounding myself with was, you know, detrimental to my life. And I want to keep what I have today. So um, there's, you know, little by little, you know, I start to recognize and I start to be aware, like it talked about, you know, not going into certain neighborhoods or, you know, certain places. And like I did that in recovery, and especially in early recovery. Like I didn't go to certain places and I didn't hang out with certain people and I didn't do certain things, you know. So it played a big role in my life and my recovery. Let's see. It says when it comes to changing people, place, things in our lives, we have to be firm and set boundaries. We talked about that. So changing people, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It says that quote is incredibly accurate. Within the world of recovery, not only is that quote accurate, it's life or death. Anyone happy in recovery is surrounding themselves with like-minded, positive people. Changing people once we get into recovery is the most important thing we can do. If we continue to hang around with the people who are still drinking and drugging, it's only a matter of time before we start up again. So this can be very hard, especially if the negative person we are trying to cut off is a family member. We need to set those healthy boundaries and respectfully tell that person that their attitude or actions are affecting our recovery. Hopefully, they will understand and respect that decision If not, we may have to cut them out of our lives altogether. And that can be uncomfortable. I talked about that a little bit earlier. It can be hard cutting people out of our lives, especially like talked about family members. And like if we're open and honest, right, and if they care about us and if they love us, they would respectfully understand what I'm saying to them, because it's about relationships. Recovery is about relationships and being open and honest. And I have to be open. I have to open up and let them know how I am and what I'm doing today. And that can be uncomfortable. That can be hard. But like, if I want to stay in the process of recovery, I have to continue to work on myself and to be honest with families and friends and my fellow addicts and stuff like that. So recovery is about relationships and healthy communication. So it can be tough, but some things need to be done. Says many people are going to be put in a difficult positions when changing the negative people in their lives. Everyone has a few family members that party too hard, gossip, or just a negative emotional drain on our lives. It may seem rude and disrespectful to cut these, let's see here, cut these people out, but it's not. When we get into recovery, we make a daily choice to stay away from the substance and lifestyle that destroyed us. We need to be vigilant and firm with who we allow into our lives. Yeah, I'm more cautious who I let into my life today, and it's not like I cut, a lot of people out of my life from my past, right? But like, I'm willing to help them today. You know what I mean? It's not like if I see them, I'm gonna be like, no, don't talk to me, or I'm not willing to help you. I have to, love them from afar. Like if you want help, I'll help you. But actively have you in my life and participate in our relationship, it just can't be done. I want to keep my recovery. I want to keep what was given to me, and the only way I can do that is by giving it away. So I'm always there for people, and if they need help. So I'm not like feel like I'm better than, I just don't want to associate myself with drugs and alcohol anymore. And they got to understand that. And sometimes they don't, but I can convey to them and have some communication with them and say, hey, this is what I'm doing today, and that's not the person I am. And I like, if I can help you, but I love you, but I can't participate in that no more. Says changing places. Changing places is the one that is often overlooked. A person may be doing well in recovery that have built up a solid foundation and say, I've been doing good for 8 months. I think it's okay to go to that club tonight. I can handle it. The tricky part is many times they will go to the club and be fine, but that tells our brain that it's okay and we can start doing it more often. Before long, we are going back to the bar or club 2 nights, 3 nights a week. And we start to see old friends who are still partying before long, we are partying again. Yeah, so it's like the brain, knowing, well, I went there or I did this once, I'm okay, I'm doing good, and then sooner or later, that kind of mindset, that kind of thinking gets me back into the same situation that I was when I first got here, and it can play the mind and addiction can play a tricky part on our minds that like we have to stay aware. We have to stay, conscious of what's going on. Because like, if I think I can get away with something, the consequences are always there, and I've learned that throughout the addiction. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week, but the consequences always do catch up with us. So I know that I can't use drugs and alcohol. I can't participate in any type of parties or clubs, or it's just not a scenery I want to be in, and if I do that, if I continue to think I can, eventually I'm going to end up relapsing. I just know that for a fact, so recovery has taught me, I start to know about myself. I start to find out what I can do and what I can't do. And some things that I've done before is just not in my best interest, and it doesn't How can I say? It's just not what I do today. It's just not beneficial for my life or my recovery. And some of the things I've done or been through or, tried to do to chase that next one, it was a lot of it was insanity. It blows my mind the things I've done, an active addiction. So I have to continue to stay in the process of recovery. Says, if you don't belong, don't belong. I routinely, routinely use this quote to remind myself about places and events I know aren't great for my recovery. If I have a wedding or family party, I have to attend, and there is going to be a lot of partying. I come late, drive my own vehicle, park in the back, and leave early. I can still go pay respect and see everyone, but get out of it as soon as I need to. Once again, some people may construe this as being rude. It's not rude, and anyone who supports your recovery will support your decision. To leave early, if they don't support your recovery, they are not someone who shouldn't be in your life. Changing places can be anywhere that brings up old memories or habits. If our job is negative, get rid of it. I will even drive different routes to work or friends' houses to avoid the old streets in the city. There is no benefit to driving down those streets, even if it's a shorter route. Yeah, so like there's things I just don't participate in today. I'm talking about like weddings, parties, and stuff like we can. Oh, there's like an exit plan. I heard that before. I heard that said. I have an exit plan. When things start to get out of control, people are partying and are drinking and becoming more under the influence, you leave. And you don't always have to tell them why. So and if they, like I talked about, if they don't support that, then they really are not your friends or family. They just, but if they love and care about you, they will understand. Changing things. My first question was things is a broad word. What things do I need to change? The answer I got was anything you need, anything negative, anything reminding you of the past. A good example of this for me was a gym bag I had. I used to keep all my drugs and paraphernalia in this bag under my gym clothes. It was always my excuse when I wanted to get high. I would say, going to work out or I need to change clothes. That's why I need my gym bag. When I got sober, I still needed a gym bag, and this bag was a beautiful brand new $100 gym bag. Yet every time I looked at it, I was reminded of all the spots I hid my drugs inside of it. The bag got tossed out. No reason to have something that reminds me of drugs near me every day. Yeah, I agree. If anything reminds you of the past and of you using or triggers you or brings up cravings, it's got to go. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it costs or, whose it is, what it is. It's got to go. You can always give it to somebody else, whatever the thing is. Gym bag, you can always figure something out. So if it ain't beneficial for your recovery, for me, it's got to go. It says changing things is going to be different for everyone. For some, it's a gym bag. For others, it's the layout of their house or bedroom. If it bothers you or triggers old memories, change it. Change it, change it. One of the main goals of recovery is to repair our brains and create new positive connections. If my bedroom reminds me of the years I sat in there and got high, I need to change the layout, even throw some things out and buy new furniture, paint it. Anything that changes it. Yeah, man, change the scenery, do something different. If it continues to trigger you or bring up cravings or brings up the desire to use drugs or alcohol, or reminds you of past things or past traumas and stuff like that, you have the choice to change it, right? And I want to live a life without the use of drugs and alcohol. So wherever it stands in front of me in my recovery, it's got to go. No matter what it is, right? Because eventually, if I continue to participate in certain things, listen, I'm not drug proof, So I've learned that um, I have to stay connected and let people know where I'm at, right? I have to be open and honest and I have to have people in my life and people in my corner. So when things do arise, because things are going to happen, I have people, new people, places, things to turn to when shit hits the fan. It says changing people, places, and things. This entire statement, changing people, places, and things, is often overlooked in recovery. Many people, myself included, would say, yeah, of course, I know that. But when it actually came down to changing the hard things, such as the negative people, I would make an excuse before long I relapsed. We don't have to view changing everything as a negative task that is going to be hard work. Look at it as a new start. We get to change and rebuild our lives however we want. We get to create a solid foundation for a long-term, healthy, happy recovery. And that's my aim, having a healthy, happy recovery. And that's what I received here. But it starts with changing the people and places and things. Recovery doesn't happen overnight, right? It does take work. It takes action, and we have to continue to do these things on a daily basis. So I have new people, places, and things in my life today, and I'm truly grateful and thankful for that. So people helped me out when I was lost, confused, and didn't know which way to go because I just didn't have to get clean and stay clean. So um, if it wasn't for the new people, places, and things today, I would not. I truly believe I would not be here today. So that was our coffee conversation meeting for the day, changing people, places, and things in recovery. My name is Carl, I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. Until next time, we'll see you later.